Anyways, holy shit, we made it to episode number 4. Welcome to the Rub. Just want to let you guys know if we've seen some jump in numbers. I don't even know, Chris, how many numbers do we got? How many views do we have so far after 3 episodes? You're the analytics man.
We're doing okay podcast-wise. We are up to, I believe, 61. YouTube took a little jump. We're up to 51 in YouTube. We just started on YouTube, so search us on YouTube. We're there. Link in bio. It's in our Facebook profile. So if you're not about the podcast and you want to watch us on YouTube, go ahead and make sure to hit that subscribe button.
Yeah, you got to hit that shit. And just, Chris is right, man. We're on Spotify. We're on Google. You got social media. The Rub is there. And we're there for all your wrestling needs and to listen to some rumors and some crazy shit that we talk about once a week. And also, if you guys want to, we got an email address. You want to send us in some questions. Your topic could be on the show. You can hit us up at therub@outlook.com. Please send us some stuff as long as it's, regulated, moderated and stuff before we go on the air, which is something that we'll do. Right, Josh? We're a moderated team, aren't we? So that's cool. So if you haven't heard already, that's our illustrious panel. We got Chris, the man, Gagno, also known as Razor Sharp, also known as Longhair McGee, also known as the Analytics Man. Chris, how's your week going? And tell us about what's going on.
I'm on strike. Spending some time walking up and down the streets. Getting some honks from the people who are supporting us. Other than that, wrestling's been a slow week, but what else have I done this week? That's about it.
Well,
been on strike, been picketing.
In the words of our good friend Kyle Anderson, we'll say, so sassy. That's great. Josh, how about yourself, man? What's going on? Tell me about your weekend. What's going on with you?
Oh, not too much. Just getting the garden ready for the year. Other than that, nothing much else going on. Getting ready for
Sweet
summer.
Mary Jane, let's get going. Summer's just around the corner. We're getting ready, and hopefully the wrestling is going to get much better from what we've seen because the last 2 weeks have been dog shit. But anyways, we're going to kick this off. We're going to start off with some WWE topics today, and we'll move into some AEW like we usually do. But for WWE, Raw and SmackDown. SmackDown hasn't happened yet, but with Raw, a little bit still uneventful for what we're seeing. But there's something to really do get excited for, and at least I get excited for it, is the WWE Draft. And that's going to be coming up, I don't know what day, probably in the next week or two. Triple H seems really excited about it. I'm excited about it. But my question for you guys is thinking about what you've been watching back on a couple of the shows. It could be Raw, it could be SmackDown. Which two wrestlers do you think will benefit the most from the draft movement moving forward? So let's start. Flip of a coin. Josh, start it off.
You know what? To be honest, I really don't know who from the main rosters are gonna move around too much, and I bet you there's gonna be a couple team breakups. But I think that the interesting people to me are the call ups that are going to be coming from NXT. I'm really excited to see Cameron Grimes move up to the main roster, so I'm hoping that's the case. Looks like Braun Breaker will also move up. And if Indy Hartwell moves up eventually, that would be cool. But I don't think she'll get drafted with the belt on her waist right now. I could see, maybe the Bloodline might not break up or just switch brands. I don't know. It seems like they've been running a show where there is no brand loyalty, and it now sounds like they're moving to where there's going to be specific brand loyalty. I'm actually looking forward to it, hoping that they split the titles up, find a way to get those titles separated so that they can have two real champions, or just amalgamate the titles and have one champion move from brand to brand. But I don't know. I think it's going to be a surprise. I really think that it's hard to tell where they're going with all of this.
Cool. Chris, what do you think? Two wrestlers that you think will benefit from the draft, the upcoming draft, and where do you see them anticipating to go, basically?
The draft. I usually get pretty excited for it. Like, it's an exciting thing to go through. Could they draft a belt? Like, could somebody maybe draft one of the big championships over and then have maybe some sort of tournament to crown a new champion? I don't know. That would be something I'd kind of like to see. Who's going to benefit from it? Are they going to break up the bloodline? I mean, it could happen. as Josh was saying, that could happen. That would actually be kind of interesting because you might have who is it? Jey Uso is they're saying might be the guy to take the belt off him. Who knows? From what I'm reading, I hear that this is the actual Triple H time to take over. Based on what I've been reading, is it like this is where he's gonna get his fresh slate? So, with the way he's going, it's hard to kind of. Because I mean, Eric Young's back now too. That I don't know if a lot of people knew that. It was really quiet, but Eric Young's back too.
He was off TV for so long, and then actually just kind of popped back in out of nowhere and could be popping in somewhere. So it's interesting to see what that. It was. I thought they released him, and turns out they've been paying him for like the last 9 months to a year just to sit around and do nothing.
Yeah, he was in TNA, and then he just like secretly came back, and he's just getting paid. Who's gonna benefit from it? I don't. Well,
they're alluding to a lot of stuff on TV, right? I mean, we're going to talk about LA Knight, and that's one of the topics that we're going to talk about. I think he's going to have a shot at benefiting maybe a move from SmackDown to Raw. That might be something that happens. I think the big one that's really kind of the two big names that kind of are popping up on TV wise are obviously like for the mid card things to kind of get them a push, and it looks like they're going to try and get Xavier Woods out of the New Day, and that's what kind of seems a little crazy because we don't really know what's going on with Big E. There's still a chance with Big E's injury that he might not wrestle again, or if not, he's going to take some significant time to come back to the ring, and Kofi's injured, so in a lot of cases it's just X by himself. So this might be a time to give him a benefit of a push, right? Then obviously it talks about Otis and Gable, and you're looking at Otis and Gable now, and you're kind of seeing like now there's this Otis and now there's this Otis with what's her name, Maxine, and the models, and so it's interesting to see that there's a couple guys there that really seem that they have the ability to have that push, but it doesn't seem to be any of the main people that are going to move.
I can't imagine it. Well, it has happened. Like big names have moved. I assume. Sorry, is it Veer Mahar?
Yeah, Veer.
I assume they're gonna give him probably a spot on that draft because he's coming. He's been coming for 6 months now. So
yeah, they're even talking about bringing back some teams that haven't really been around. Like there was talk about the Authors of Pain potentially coming back. And having a shot and being in the tag team division with being in some heavy hitting matches like with the Viking Raiders and stuff like that. So the draft is going to be a little bit interesting. It'll be interesting to see. I think another move that potentially happen is that you'll probably see Drew move over to Raw. I think that's going to kind of benefit him, and it kind of gives you that ability to push some of the new team members out as well. So I think time will tell, and we'll see what Triple H's direction has moving forward with the draft. But I absolutely love with what Josh is saying too. I think having guys like potentially like Braun move up and obviously drop the title to Carmelo Hayes. I don't think they're going to bring Indy up with the thing, but Cameron Grimes hasn't wrestled in forever, but apparently like looks like he's put on 15 or 20 pounds of muscle. And he's getting ready for that main show, which is going to be crazy. Okay, so for the second topic, this is one that kind of came up the other day, and we've been talking about kind of this, SmackDown women's tag team division, and we talked about our love of tag team wrestling, but in a lot of cases, it kind of seems to be bland, but they've been getting a lot of time on airways, especially for SmackDown and Raw with the tag teams for the belts. So one of the things is actually that kind of came through is that Liv and Raquel now have the titles, and that's kind of an odd and unique pairing that you wouldn't normally see. Now, my question is, can they reinvigorate the women's tag division? Why or why not? Start off with Chris.
No, I don't think so. It's really just the pairings are too bizarre. They don't make sense. Other than Shayna and Baszler and Rousey, like none of those tag teams make any sense. Like Shotzi and who am I trying to say? Natalya. Yeah. I don't know. They don't make much sense to me. I mean, Raquel doesn't do it for me. The back thing, that's all she's got to me. I can watch her flex her back a couple times, and sure, it's impressive the first time, but Liv Morgan, what are they doing? Are they just putting belts on her now? Because, like, is it just me, or does she start to look like worse in the ring?
She has her moments. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I find it tough to watch sometimes.
Yeah, it's
Like-
you know what, they have their moments where like if there's some days where you can watch Liv and Liv is just really on, and then there's some days you can watch Liv and she's just terrible in my opinion. Like it's just like you never know which one you're gonna get. It seems she pulls herself up for the big matches, but it's the everyday stuff that people watch all the time, right? Like I mean everybody's bringing themselves up for the big matches. You got to be on every day to be one of the top contenders, right?
Yeah, I'm tired of hearing Corey Graves saying we're watching you live. So like I don't know, what do we you need some teams that make sense, like somebody who has history together, somebody's working together. Like you can't just put Shotzi and Natalia together because Shotzi comes in a tank and think it's gonna like reinvigorate your tag division. If you're gonna have the women's tag belts, you should give it time, and you should, instead of just parading people out there and doing the job, you should invest some story time into it.
Well, I think that's what it's been odd because that's what they've been doing with Chelsea Green, right? So you look at kind of what they've been doing with Chelsea Green. She's been losing a lot, but at the end of the day, like at least out of all the stories that are out there, her story makes the most sense. So
Right.
She's either with Sonya or she was with, with Carmella in the beginning. Now it's Sonya, and now it looks like they're going after Liv and Raquel. And so it's kind of interesting how they brought that up. And it's like the same thing. It's like you have a massive tag team in Shayna and Rousey that has a lot of notoriety to like kick the hell out of the division, and yet there's like really no story. That even just putting them together was like, well, they were the 4 horsewomen. No, we'll just put them together. It's gonna work. It doesn't work that way. If there's no storyline or background, it doesn't really have anything there. Nobody cares, right? So, and so Josh, when we're coming to this question, I know you're a big fan of Raquel because she hits hard. And I know that when you're looking at the women's division and knowing that from what we've talked about, you're a big fan of the ones that look like they're hitting and that actually hit hard. So you have somebody here in Raquel that hits people really hard. And then we have one of your not so favorites in Liv who doesn't look like she can be there. I think it were your words at one point, just due to her size and that she doesn't hit hard. So it's kind of funny how they kind of threw it together and to go through. So what are your thoughts on this pairing? Can they do anything? And if you could change Liv Morgan out to put somebody with Raquel, who would you put her with?
It's a tough one. I do like Raquel just because of her strength and because of her dominance in the ring. I mean, I think this is their 3rd or 4th pairing since she's moved up to the roster. Like she was with Dakota Kai before she came in NXT. They're really booking her as a tag team wrestler, which it seems like she's the only one that they're booking consistently as a tag team wrestler. I actually really think that the WWE is doing a really terrible job with the women's division. They're not. It seems like the storylines are rushed. They don't give them enough time in the rings. And then I think the matches end up looking sloppy because they're rushing to get the spots in that they want to get in. And a lot of the times it doesn't make sense to the story for me. It's not that I don't like Liv Morgan. It's just that like I don't like when they book a wrestler of her size to dominate someone of Raquel's size. It's just not my favorite thing. Like I like to see, more of like the Rey Mysterio style where it's like they're going to get a fast opportunity and take advantage of a situation. Unfortunately, in the women's division, a lot of the times those smaller wrestlers are also the slower wrestlers, so they're not getting those big spots over on the bigger wrestlers because they move just as quick or even faster. But I just think that the problem with the women's tag division is that they're not dedicating anybody to it. They're really just moving in singles wrestlers, putting them together, and then trying to make it work, but not developing any story. I think that, like when Dakota Kai and Raquel Rodriguez Raquel were at a tag in NXT, that was actually a really good tag team. I enjoyed it. It had some, kind of had, 2 different wrestlers. They seemed to work well together, and then they broke them up. If they just, dedicated the women's division to have a few tag teams, then maybe you could do it. But I just don't think that there's enough strong women wrestlers there to do so. And, even looking at the AEW women's match this week, it just looks sloppy because, again, it looks like they were rushing to their spots and, just trying to get them all in. I don't know. It looked out of control. And that's what I think I find a lot of the times in those women's tags matches is they're just not working together well.
It almost feels like the way they're booking them is that they have to book them. So let's just put it out there.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think the one way that you go through, I think there's 2 issues to this too, is that I think like the other issue is I think if you look at the women that are in the top of the division for the singles division, they're all the cream of the crop, right? And there's so much better standing when it comes to draw rates, when it comes to how good they are compared. I think that there's a sizable gap between the skills for the ones that are the elite at the very top and for the ones that aren't, that are out at the bottom. So it's almost like kind of what Chris said. It's like, okay, well, let's pair them together. They're going to get some more time in the ring. They're going to get more of this, but it doesn't seem like, okay, we're going to build to something on it. It's just like, okay, let's just throw it together. Now you have a chance with the draft as well to potentially take some of the talent that's in NXT with some of those girls that were, or some of the women that were there that were basically tagging for a while. Like you have Casey Catanzaro and you have Caden. The one that I really would have loved to see would have been Gigi Dolan and JC Jane if they would have stayed together. I thought that would have been really good. And I thought when Mandy Rose basically was released due to the OnlyFans or whatever she came out with, I thought for sure they were going to move up to the main roster. And then they just kind of teased this breakup. And it would have been awesome for them to drop the belts in NXT, wait a couple weeks, and then put them up on the main roster. And I think that would have been a really good tag team that would have kind of stood out. Now, when you're looking at NXT now, is that you can't basically ravage the whole division. You have to take who you're going to take. And so with that, you might be able to bring a couple of them up to kind of give a little bit of freshness to it. But I think without having the people proper, I think it's really tough to reinvigorate the decision. So I think we're all agreed here that, when we look at Liv, and we look at Raquel, we're saying invigoration equals no.
I mean, almost get to the point where just get rid of the belts.
Or I'd say like it's the problem with the two brands is that having one set of belts makes sense, but having two sets of belts doesn't.
Do they have two women's tag titles?
Yeah, they have a Raw and SmackDown.
Who are the Raw Women's Tag Team Champions?
We should know this, but Chris, you want to look it up while I keep talking?
Sorry, that's a funny question.
I'm trying to think. I know that.
No, it's just one. There's just one.
No, it was. Well, who was? So let's go back. Think WrestleMania. So WrestleMania, the Raw Tag Team Champions were Becky Lynch and but they lost.
Yeah.
So it was Becky Lynch and it was Lita.
So there's only one women's tag title though. There's not two.
Yes, there is, because there's the SmackDown Women's Tag Title because Raquel and Liv have the titles.
But they won those off. They won those off of Becky, and Becky won hers off of Dakota Kai.
So there's only one set of tag titles. Pretty sure there's two.
Okay, let's look it up here.
Let's just fucking throw fisticuffs.
Yeah,
Jesus
we
Christ.
we
this
do
is what
all
we
the
do on this podcast. We're in the NHL playoffs.
We do all the research here at the Rub.
It's part of it, man. I mean, we're not, we're not professionals. We're amateurs at this, but we're trying to put a professional setup up. But I mean, it's worth it to look. We might have to look. We don't have a stats guy that's sitting in the background. Well, we can get Kent the Man. It just says
the current champions are Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan.
Yeah, Liv Morganson.
I'm seeing that the heaviest champions were Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. And the lightest champions were Carmella and Queen Zelina.
No Rico.
Anyways, regardless of what's going on with the belts, which makes us look stupid at this point, and I hope you all get a good laugh out of it, I'll take the blame for that. And I should do better as the host. But anyways, reinvigoration on this topic, no. But now for our next topic, this is something that I really do enjoy, which is when we're talking about Money in the Bank. And now we got Backlash to come first. We got a pretty, a card that's going in Puerto Rico for Backlash. But let's start talking some Money in the Bank. Now, we're kind of looking at this weird little push for LA Knight on SmackDown. And there's rumor going around the rumor mill saying that he might be the front runner for Money in the Bank. Do you think that that's a good choice for Money in the Bank, for him to have the actual suitcase and for what he can do with it? And does he look like a potential heavyweight champion for the company at some point? Chris, what are your thoughts? Do you think LA Knight can hold the difference with him in the suitcase?
Dummy, yeah, I do. I think I'm all for it. I think it would be great if they give him Money in the Bank. I mean, the guy can talk. We know that. I know the knock on him is that he's older, right? So generally you're going to think WWE is going to put him in kind of like a gatekeeper situation. But I mean, if he gets one run out of it, I'm gonna be happy. I want to see him with more time. I mean, Vince tried to fucking. Oh, I can say fuck, eh? Yeah, Vince.
Yeah, it's our podcast. You can say whatever you want.
Yeah, it's not for kids. So yeah, Vince kind of put him in the maximum male models, and he actually made it kind of interesting. Like I thought it was funny when he was there. So I mean, he's doing the best that he can with what he's getting, but I think if they give him the ball, I think we'll be surprised about how much people will pay attention to him and what he can do.
That's great. Josh, now I know that LA Knight is somebody that's a little bit new to you because Chris and I remember him mostly as Eli Drake in a lot of cases when he was impacted, his impact run. And I know we were talking about this last week, but from a freshness standpoint, it's actually a good thing for me to ask this question. From what you've seen with LA Knight on a WWE platform, do you think that he could fit as a heavyweight champion, or do you think that he's just a guy that can carry the suitcase and he's probably going to lose and potentially drop whatever he's going to do when he cashes in on the contract? What do you think? What do you think he brings to the table?
I mean, I really like LA Knight's character. When I first saw him in NXT, I wasn't really a big fan. But then, as I got to watch him as the weeks go on, I really do appreciate the work that he does. Physically, he's exactly what they would need in the heavyweight title shot. To be honest though, I don't think that they're booking him for a run at Money in the Bank. I don't see them putting the heavyweight chair, or the world championship on him. I could see that he could get it, just based on what he's offering, but it doesn't look like they're doing it that way. However, they did let Austin Theory win the U.S. championship with Money in the Bank. So maybe, that's just a route they're going where, they could do the secondary titles with Money in the Bank. You never know. There could be a swerve with one of the bigger wrestlers who keeps on getting screwed to face Roman, and they've got to find a way to split those belts up. And Money in the Bank might be the best way to do so, where the person wins with Money in the Bank and uses it for a specific championship, and then there you go. But I don't see them doing that to Roman specifically. I see Roman losing both to somebody and then someone else splitting the titles.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think in the long case, I think if they were going to go with LA Knight in this spot and having the kind of the front run for having the suitcase, I think it's going to be a long and drawn out suitcase. You have a year with it, and I think it's really going to have to give him the year to really run with it. And I think one of the differences between him and Austin Theory is I think with his veteran experience and being in with interviews and having the kind of wherewithal, because we've watched him for years, and he has taglines that are the same thing every week, but he can't come out with the suitcase and say the same thing every week, because if that happens, people just kind of say, "Oh, geez, when he's cashing it in." So I think he has this ability to probably take the suitcase as long as he can go and still make it fresh, just due to how much of a vet he is in the ring and what he can do. I think it's going to give him an opportunity. If he does have a shot at it, I think it's really going to give him an opportunity to really get a good win streak going and really see what it's going to be like for him to be in the back end of a show on a regular basis. Because right now, I love the fact that he's calling everybody idiots and that he's beating the living hell out of people backstage, because he's basically the epitome of a heel, and he's been doing a really good job of it for the last 6 months. So I think that'll be pretty cool for him to see. Now, there's some other people that could step into that role too, but we really don't know what's happening storyline wise. I mean, you know what? If Sami and Owens drop the titles relatively early, you could have potential for having Kevin Owens or Sami Zayn to potentially hold it, which gives you somebody that's more credible to go after Roman Reigns, right? Could be a scenario. This could be the chance potentially for maybe Cody to get a shot at Roman, but also for maybe Sami to get another shot at Roman as well. So could be something really kind of interesting there, where there's a swerve that could come through that leads into maybe SummerSlam or a little bit later. So time will tell. But yeah, I'd be in favor of having LA Knight run, and I think he'd do a really good job with it, to be honest.
Yeah, I like your idea there too. I totally forgot what you said, so I'll cut that out.
No, we just all I was talking about, man, was when we were talking about how potentially you could have somebody else that comes in and does a swerve going into SummerSlam, right?
So I wouldn't be too upset with Sami if Sami got the briefcase and held it for a while. That'd be okay. I'd be okay with that. I think they could make it interesting enough with the bloodline stuff that Sami could potentially hold that for a while and who knows? Jay gets involved, and then something happens.
There's so many ways that you could go.
Yeah.
And I think like what happens is that when it comes to the WWE, it's always trying to put that money in the bank on the young person, that up and comer, right? To give them the shot. Why don't give it to a vet and see what they do with it? Give it to somebody who like is an actual legitimate contender that's really coming out and going to scare the living shit out of the heavyweight champion to come out, and I think it's going to really kind of increase the storyline. It's just a different route, and I think it's just a fresh take on having the money in the bank, because sometimes when Austin Theory had it, I couldn't even care less. I was just waiting for the pay-per-views to see if he would cash it. That was pretty much it. I knew he was never going to do it on
put
Raw
it on
or
Solo
show.
Sikoa or Jey Uso, and then force the bloodline breakup right there.
I'd like
Solo
that.
Sikoa was
like
a top.
yeah.
Solo Sikoa was actually a kind of a going to be one of our later topics, because he's going to get a massive push too. I think you could potentially, we talked about the bloodline breaking up for the draft. What about keeping the bloodline together but moving Solo out? Like, that's something else that can kind of happen, where he ends up on a different brand, and then they kind of run into him, maybe not all the time, but once in a while. And then, you know what? Because he seems to be the saving grace for Roman and them if he's there, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he's going to be a future topic on this show for sure. Lots of potential. I think the Samoan Spike is one of the most deadly finishers, the way it looks anyways when he does it, and he's got the look to do everything. And, I think he's Rikishi's son, if I'm not mistaken, right?
They all are. All but Roman.
I don't know half the shit here.
I mean, they're brothers, right?
Roman? Yeah, it makes
Solo's
sense.
just a lot younger, so he's not as like he doesn't know his brothers as well as he should, from what I've read in interviews.
Ah, okay, cool. I'm not gonna combat that because I don't fucking know. Okay, so moving on from WWE, we're gonna move on to 2 days down the road, which will be Wednesday night. We're gonna move on to Dynamite. Kind of a weird Dynamite. We were discussing it earlier, a little bit botchy in the beginning, a couple weird things kind of going on. Overall, I thought it was an okay show, though. I thought they did a pretty good job. There was a couple of really good segments that kind of kept us in the thing. But let's talk about how weird this 4 pillars angle is going on, and just how kind of odd it's turning into. Like, we were talking about this before, and it's just there's a whole bunch of potential outcomes that can come from this 4 pillars angle. Now, it's just odd. Now we got this plan thrown in by MJF, where he offers Sammy Guevara, a blank check, tells him to lay down, tells him to do whatever it is so that he can get what he's gonna get, and then all of a sudden now they go from hating each other to now they're really good friends, which is obviously fake and whatever. Josh, when you saw this play out on Wednesday night, what was your original thoughts, and where do you think they're going to go with this 4 pillars angle now that Jungle Jack is out of the tournament?
I mean, it's definitely they're not the tournament's irrelevant. I think the tournament is just a distraction to get us to, what is it, Double or Nothing. They can't play this angle and not have them do a 4-way match for the title. I foresee that MJF screws Darby Allin against Sammy Guevara, and then he screws Sammy Guevara, and they all complain to Tony, and Tony gives them a 4-way match. Maybe I'm reading it on the nose a little bit too much, but it doesn't make any sense to end Jungle Boy's push and bury Jungle Boy. Why they had to finish it all in that match made no sense to me to the storyline, because the way they're telling the story leads to 4 pillars fighting each other. It doesn't lead to MJF just screwing over the faces. He's going to screw over all of them. It's classic MJF, right? Like, and of course it's a safe way to do it with Sammy being the other heel in this this feud, and it's got to end with the 4 pillars fighting each other at Double or Nothing. If not, the storyline makes no sense. I mean, I don't think it makes any sense to have 4 of the smallest wrestlers wrestle for the title, but I guess it makes sense in the long run, because they've been playing up this 4 pillars since MJF mentioned it when he was feuding with CM Punk. But it seems like it's really forced, and I mean, three of the 4 guys are terrible on the mic. When Sammy Guevara is the second best on the mic in there, you got a problem.
Well, as much as I hate Sammy as well, I will cut it to Chris. When Chris mentioned last week, he said his promo was really good. I think his promos are getting better, but I have to agree. That promo felt very forced. It felt very, what's the word? First world problem-y. Like, oh man, you just did this because you couldn't make it as a skateboarder. Like, who gives a flying fuck? Really? Like, who gives a shit? we're in professional wrestling. We're not talking about you being a skateboarder. So what? You missed your RVCA sponsorship deal. Whoop-de-doo. But I think at the end of the day, when you're going through, Chris, what are your thoughts on this? Are you leaning towards what Josh is saying, or do you think that there's another outcome from this if you're looking at it?
Yeah, I second everything Josh says about it. It's weird. Doesn't make sense to me. I mean, you have Darby Allin talking about doing headlock takeovers. Like, what, you're gonna pin a guy with a headlock takeover? Like, come on. And
that was MJF's favorite line to him in a match. He was going to beat, beat CM Punk?
Oh, okay.
No, he actually told Darby Allin that he was going to beat him with a headlock takeover, and then he did when he was knocked out in the first match they had.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. It's same with Josh, like having these small, like 4 small guys in the ring who aren't necessarily good on the mic. Like you need MJF to come and save the segment each time they come out. You need MJF to sit there and save the segment. That's not how it should be. You should have one guy playing strong each week. You should have a different pillar going up each week, giving a strong promo to them. But instead, like, yeah, the skateboarder thing, like, couldn't make. Who cares? Nobody cares that he didn't make it as a skateboarder.
I'm going to interject. When you mean all 4, do you think MJF is small in this scenario, or do you mean the other 3?
I don't mean MJF is small, but I just mean like the 4 pillars. I just mean they're like the 3 of them they're all like cruiserweights. Like they're
all sub 6 feet tall. MJF is the heaviest, and he's the only one over 200 pounds, which is the craziest thing. Like,
you know what's crazy? And if you watch MJF when he was like first started to now, he's probably put on at least 1 Darby Allin.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to get Josh laughing at that one. I knew he was going to laugh at that one. But it's just fucking true, man. Like, at the end of the day, like, MJF has probably put on 25 pounds to legitimately look like, a world champion. And I think that's the difference between everybody else. I think, like, you're looking at everybody else, and I think Jack's got I think Jack Perry's got a great future. I think Sammy is, like I said, not my favorite, but I think Sammy can do some things in the ring that a lot of other people can't. But at the end of the day, when you kind of look at Darby, I'm not as sold on Darby Allin as much as I is. I think in a lot of cases, even his second title reign, I feel, was only really given to him because it was in Seattle, which was his hometown. And I think in a lot of cases, he's never really around it. He's always out, and he's got his own videos, and he goes live on Instagram. He does all this other stuff. And I mean, that's cool if that's what you want to do, man. But I don't think anybody's going to give you a world championship opportunity when you're not 100% dedicated to it. And I don't think that he's necessarily the best company guy. That's just me. And, I mean, who would I know? But I'm not there. But I think when you look at people who are really trying to fight their way for that company, his name doesn't really come up for me. So I'd be thinking of Jericho. I'd be thinking of MJF. I'd be thinking of, Moxley, Danielson. Those guys are really trying to push AEW to the forefront. And, yeah, I have to agree with both you guys. It's just a really weird concept. I don't really know what's going to happen, but I feel like the only way that they are going to save any grace here is by doing exactly what Josh said, is to have them all fight in a 4-way. And I think that's the best match you're going to see them in. You're going to have three cruiserweights flying around the ring trying to kill each other. Darby Allin's greatest asset is that he's absolutely fearless and that he doesn't care what happens to his body. He's going to give up his body for his craft, and I respect him immensely for doing that.
I mean, that match is going to be like, it'll be table, ladders, and chairs. Like that's what that match is going to be.
You got to hope so. Or a steel cage. It's got to be something where it's like all I want to see in that 4 pillars match, and it sounds stupid, is a car crash. That's really what we want to see. We just want to see bodies flying all over the place. We want to make sure, obviously, everybody's safe. But I think the match that people want to see with that is really this high flying, high energy, people crashing into things and doing crazy shit. That's really what it's going to come down to. And then, which is kind of, I love, because it kind of puts MJF a little bit out of his element. And I think as a world champion, he's going to have to bring whatever he's going to bring to that table to add to that match, because that's what's expected for those 3, but he has a different expectation. His is to play that heel character really, really well, and I think that's really going to suit him in this match. That's what I like to call the X factor in this match.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be So that was a little bit of the weirdness when it came from Dynamite. Moving on from there, a couple really cool segments that we saw, which was the second one was the addition of Konosuke Takeshita as the fourth for the Elite in the angle with the BCC. Basically, what happened was you saw Don Callis come out. He came out, looked like he was going to get in the ring. Uncle Don shit his pants, ran to the back, and then basically got another guy to come out, and then picked out Takeshita to come out, and basically he laid house and basically kicked the BCC out of the ring. So it looks like we're going to have a 4-on-4 tag with the BCC and this Elite hybrid, or the Elite plus Takeshita. When you're looking at it, Chris, what do you think about this angle? Do you think now with the addition of Konosuke to the mix, do you think that it makes the angle better, or do you think he's just a filler to make up the 8-man tag in this situation?
Filler looked weird. Looked weird when Don Callis came out and then just ran back and came out with some random wrestler in the back.
Now, just to kind of go through, that really wasn't that random in a sense that for the past couple of weeks, Don Callis has actually been kind of going in and out to Takeshita and saying like how much they actually like him. But I didn't think that he was going to be the guy that came out. Like it does have that randomness to it, that feel to it though, right? Even though that happened.
Well, I don't know. Like, why have him come out in the first place just to turn around? Why not just bring him out? Sometimes AEW does this where they kind of, it's like they overproduce something where it's like, okay, let's make sure everybody sees that Don Callis is coming out, but he's going to go back and get somebody else. Okay, I get it. Like, why not just have him come out? Because it not to say like it's jarring, right? Because you just see him come out, it stops you, and you're like, oh, okay, and then he just goes back. So you're like, you're kind of taken out of the whole spot. Like the whole gimmick is kind of taken out. You're putting a pause on it. I don't know. I find AEW does this to me every once in a while where there's something that's put in for the sake of being put in that doesn't need to be there. I like him. I like the wrestler a lot. I think it does make sense. They do need somebody. Hangman was Hangman not at the show, or?
I don't know. Hangman wasn't on Dynamite at all. So, I don't know if there's going to be a shot there with it. If it was going to be Hangman at any point, I think like this, I have my reasoning on why, and I'll explain after why I think he's there. But Hangman wasn't on Dynamite.
So like, yeah, I don't know. Just kind of felt like because they didn't naturally, following the story, be going Hangman would be coming out, right, and then. This just felt to me like he went back and grabbed the next best thing, and it just I don't know. That's he wasn't the guy I was expecting to come back. Mind you, I didn't even expect anybody to come back. I thought Don Callis just ran out and ran back like a baby.
Like the chicken shit he is. Josh, what are your thoughts on Takeshita's addition to this match, and how do you think he fared well? I thought he laid out a massive blue thunder bomb, which looked great. But what are your thoughts about him taking on the BCC and what looks like it's going to be an 8-man tag?
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to forgive me. I'm not as knowledgeable with the Japanese wrestlers, so when they keep on introducing these guys, I don't have as much invested in them as some of the hardcore fans do. So I think that when he first came through in AEW, he was in a 10-man tag with the Elite. So I don't know, maybe it's a continuation of that. It could be a storyline where I'm not sure. At first I thought it was, Takeshita was the other pair to the Golden Lovers. And I was like, oh, that's great. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, that's not the same guy. That's not Kota Ibushi or whatever. I would have been more interested to see the Golden Lovers make a return. But it just seems like it's a filler. They need a fourth guy. He didn't really make sense because this is the first time that he's been kind of brought into the mix with the feud. So I agree with Chris that it would have made more sense if it was Adam Page. But maybe there's a reason why it wasn't But yeah, it doesn't really make sense. But I really do enjoy the story, and I think the match is going to be great. I can't wait for us to see the example of John Moxley doing the weakest looking stomps, so that we can talk about it.
Josh's favorite thing in AEW.
But he's one of my
Moxley
favorite wrestlers.
stomps.
This is one of my favorite wrestlers. I just wish that he was much more menacing with his stomps. Anyhow, but the story is
just getting older, Josh. He's just getting older. He's just getting older. He's just getting tired. That's all.
No. I think it's just he's trying to protect the people too much. He knows it's a devastating move.
Josh's favorite part of Dynamite is Tope Suicidas and John Moxley stomps.
Yeah. And it's, how many times it's either a Tope Suicida or 15 guys standing outside of the ring. In WWE, it's when, they do all the women in the corner with the Tahana bomb, and they've got like a 6, it's great to see it, but why not just do it at a pay-per-view instead of every time? Anyhow.
That's true. I think the addition of Takeshita is really kind of cool, because Takeshita is kind of from NJPW. He was kind of doing his journey. Now he's signed to AEW, which is great. I think what they're setting up here is they're really setting up like a Japanese strong style match. And I think there's going to be something here that's going to lead into the Forbidden Door. And I think that's where we're potentially going to see the Golden Elite come back. So that's where I think Kota Ibushi is going to kind of have his mark, because he's a free agent. There was something going around on Reddit saying that he's like, if Tony's around, I'm willing to talk.
I read that as well.
And I think the one thing that's going to be shocking is that if you bring him back at Forbidden Door, they're going to think, a lot of people are still going to think the wrestling industry's not stupid. Like I said, we said it last week, we're all marks. But there's still going to be some people that I think that he's signed to NJPW when he's clearly a free agent. He doesn't work there anymore. And I have a really tough time thinking that he's not going to end up in AEW. It's either that or retire for me, or he ends up in some. I can't see him wrestling in another promotion in Japan.
It looks like
that's just the way I see
40,
it.
It looks like he's 25.
Yeah, he's just he's in incredible shape. He's always in shape. I think he's just getting over those injuries, and I think he just had a really just bad spell at the end of it. I think with his injuries and the misdiagnosis or whatever they're talking about, I think there was some really bad feelings there with NJPW. But I think you're winning, and I think the time is now to get him back in. And I don't know what that happens in its entail. It'd be nice to see him back with the Elite and then really kind of doing something crazy, but there's a lot of different routes you can go. And I think one of the routes that we look at if Kota Ibushi does come back, it's looking at not having the Elite together as one as well. That's another option.
Can't bring him back and not bring back the Golden Elite though. It seems like
no, you can't. I think you bring it back in. It'll come back in some way, shape, or form. But the question is, do you start with it or do you end with it? That's the question, right? So I think there's a lot that could be said here, and I think we're gonna kind of get a really good fist fight in that match. And I think it's gonna be I think it'll be a strong style match. I think everybody in that match is very well versed with strong style. And I think it's going to be that match is going to be awesome. I think especially at the pay-per-view when it goes down. So I'll be shocked if it's not an 8-man tag. Now, we'll come to our last topic. The last topic of the night was probably the most interesting segment on Dynamite, which was basically Adam Cole and Chris Jericho meeting in the middle of the ring and basically having this really cool promo where, Adam Cole was given all the props to Chris Jericho, said he read his first book, he's my hero, and Chris Jericho says, I don't fucking like you. And basically, I don't like anything about you. Don't meet your heroes because they'll let you down. That's exactly what's happening here. Now, that by itself was, a great piece of storytelling, kind of, divulging what it was like for Adam Cole growing up with Chris Jericho. And now, it's obviously going to have this match. So I think somebody called somebody a stupid idiot, and I laughed. I thought it was pretty funny. But the most interesting part of the segment was at the end when basically Daniel Garcia ran down to the ring and they handcuffed Adam Cole to the ring, which caused, for some reason, Britt Baker to come down. And she took a vicious beating with a kendo stick. I gave mad props. I stood up and I actually started clapping at the screen because I thought, literally, she did an amazing job. She took the beating in her hometown of Pittsburgh, which got the crowd pretty hot. I wouldn't say it was nuclear heat, but they were kind of shocked. She actually calls out to him at one point using his real name, which is Austin, and kind of tries to take it away from a storyline perspective, which was kind of neat. I kind of have some mixed emotions on this, but I was really leaning towards. I thought it was really well done. I don't know what you guys thoughts. That's why we're here. Josh, what'd you think of that kind of that segment? How did it work out for you? Am I just being overexcited for nothing? Because I don't know. I thought it's a pretty good lead up, and we're gonna see some pretty good storytelling between these two going into the pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic setup where you have, force the woman to watch her man get beat up and, make her, have that emotion, but to flip it and to have Adam have to watch it, so much more emotional, I think. And it was really good, and I really enjoyed the way that they did it. I think it's perfect to be at home. I think that's wonderful that if I'm going to take a beating like that, I want to do it in front of my family, because that's what makes the story that much better. And I think that part of what the women's division is missing is that kind of like ruthlessness that you see in the men's division, and I really enjoyed it, and I think that it's making Britt Baker that much bigger of a babyface. Like, not that long ago, she was a huge heel. So for her to flip and have be a baby face as strong as she is, it's great, and I'm really interested to see where it goes. And I'm not really sold on Soraya. I think that hopefully she stays as a manager. Not a big fan of her wrestling ability that I've seen so far. Maybe it's the injury, or maybe it's just the ring rust. But the beatings, you could watch that all day. It's wonderful.
Yeah, you know what? I just remember him yelling like, "I'm so sorry," and he's like, he said it about 10 times, like, "I'm so sorry." And like, it's funny because for me, like, I watch Adam Cole in also a different capacity, and I don't know how much you guys watch Twitch, but I actually watch the Chugs Army on Twitch, and that's basically Adam Cole's Twitch handle, and he does really well on Twitch. Like, he gets about probably close to 800 to 1,000 viewers on his channel. But the funny thing about Adam Cole, and like even as a heel when you used to watch him in NXT and stuff, is that Adam Cole is legitimately the nicest man on planet Earth. And if you ever watch his things, like, he'll sit there and he's talking on, and he goes, "Oh, you know what? So he'll get like 5 subs that come in," and he goes, "Oh my God, Liddy, thank you so much. I appreciate everything you do." Like, he's like the sweetest guy on planet Earth. And so it's so funny when you watch him as a heel come through and how good his acting ability is. But now there's kind of this, and fucking ridiculous, there was a Chugs Army flag on the show that showed up when he was on his way to the ring, which is really funny. So if you haven't seen that, it's kind of Chris, if you ever do show notes for this thing, that's a show note. Like, people, you need to check him out and just watch half an hour and watch how nice he is. It's saccharine. It's sweet. It's like you literally drank grenadine when you watch him. I'm not kidding. That's how sweet he is. But moving forward, now we got this little weird thing for me where it's kind of like he's kind of blurring the lines, where you kind of got this believability between, kind of this Austin guy as a whole, and now you got Adam Cole, and now it's kind of in this middle. Chris, I know that you might not have seen a lot of the Twitch stuff, but it seemed like Adam Cole was kind of moving into like kind of a human being, because like when you've watched him in ROH, he was such a prick that it was hard to think that he was even a human being. But he had like this really human, emotional side to you. What really caught you off about that segment when you were watching it live?
Just classic segment. Like, brings you back to, and don't quote me on this, but it makes me think of like Macho Man and Elizabeth. Makes me like, it was a good throwback. Like, I thought this segment was really well done. Like Josh said, they flipped the script and had Britt Baker beat on, which I mean, yeah, it worked for me. It kind of helped me out on the dull show. Like, it kept my interest. You saw it in his face too. Like, looking at his face brought me back to, I don't know if you guys remember Shawn Michaels saying "I'm sorry" to Ric Flair before he super kicked him.
Yeah.
Oh, before he super kicked him.
So kind of brought me back to that, where like you're really thinking like he's hurting inside, and that's that believability you want to see, right? You want to see somebody, and yeah, him saying "I'm sorry," and especially like what Matt said when he's saying his real name, like it's bringing you now into into real life in a different way. Like it's not just going on the mic and saying, "Oh, you Jeff Hardy had a DUI. How did you get here? Did somebody have to drive you?" Something like that. But I think it's more. It's cool because it's like okay, like this is really happening. Like I need you. Okay, guys.
I didn't expect that story. That's good. Fucking, we're going to hell.
Yeah. So yeah, that's basically how I saw it. It's a good throwback segment. We don't see a lot of that anymore. Like we don't see a lot of segments like where you're seeing pure emotion. Like it looked like pure emotion. Like you looked at and you believed like he could cry right now. Like it's. So for me, good segment. I thought the booking, whoever was in charge of that, just played it out perfectly. And when you have Adam Cole and Chris Jericho in the ring and a segment, I don't think you can go wrong with them. So I think it's gonna be a decent feud leading up to. I assume Jericho's gonna do the job because that's what he's doing now. But I like it. I like it. I'm interested in it.
You never know, though. You think like Jericho's done the job a few times, but he also goes over a little bit to make the story work. Like I really find that it's interesting that like in the 2 weeks that they've been doing Jericho Cole, like I'm more interested in that story than I am in several stories that AEW's been running over the last 2 years, I would say. And it's just like the thing that I enjoy about AEW the most is that the dream matches and like the crazy matches are happening. But like I will agree with a lot of the critics of AEW is that the storylines are dry sometimes, and this one's really impressed me. So
yeah, this one is safe to say is moist. And the two things that we will say at the very end, I'll give you two things before we get ready to wrap up the show. I think with that, I think that was probably one of the only segments that I've seen in a while where every single person that was in that ring for that segment got over for what they need to get over for. Chris Jericho gets over as the hated heel. You know, basically you have to solidify Adam Cole as a babyface. You solidify Britt Baker more as a babyface. And then you have the Saraya and the girls come in, or the Outcasts come in, and they get even more heelish over that. And I think that's just unreal. It was just really, really well done. You don't get to see it all the time, but yeah. And I think the second.
Sorry, I wanted to mention. Sorry to cut you off there from your thought, but I thought okay. With Raw, with the factions coming together, and I thought that really brought me back. Like that, I liked how they did that. How they had the bloodline out, then they had Judgment Day come out, and then they work together to solve each other's problems. LWO comes out. I just wanted to get that in there before we ended. That I really liked the booking in that direction. It was enjoyable. It was good to see teams like back in the day come and fight each other.
And they teased really cool... Rhea versus Solo Sikoa, intergender baby.
Yeah.
And Rhea, I think Rhea scared Paul Heyman so much that he shit his pants at one point, which was great too.
Menacing.
She is. But yeah, I think other than that, just to finish up on the Cole and Jericho thing, I think that this is also not going to go the way that people think it is. I think this is going to go all the way to London. I really think that this is going to be basically a feud that's going to go long term, because
money.
Why not? I mean, you don't need to have Adam Cole chasing for a title. But what we really need when it comes down to those matches is we really need solid matches going into Wembley. And that with a 6-month feud is going to be one of the upper card, mid card, upper card, like solid matches that you're going to have. So, as much as you think Jericho's going to do the job, I think Jericho's going to actually win at Double or Nothing and really kind of go through. And I think if you're going to give Cole his moment and solidify him as a world champion, then you got to get him at Wembley and have him beat Jericho in front of 100,000 strong is really going to get him over. So that's my thought on it. But with that being said, we're out of topics. We're going to get ready to watch SmackDown at some point. We got about SmackDown in 15 minutes. We do shoot this on Fridays. But like we said in the opener, you know what? You can catch us on Google. You can catch us on Spotify. You can catch us on YouTube. We do have an email if you want to write in some questions. therub@outlook.com. We got our great illustrious panel here. Josh, Chris, boys, say farewell.
See you later.
See you later.
And with that being said, wherever you are today, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I bid you adieu. Bang!